got my skeleton hand, I got my spooky sign, I got my spooky lights, I got my comfy sweatshirt. It's spooky time. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Director in the Making, aka me, Veronica, and today I'm going to tell another spooky urban legend. So, actually I never figured out how to say the name of this place. Give me a second.
Conjolier.
Conjolier?
Conjolier.
Conjolier. Alright. Yeah. So today's urban legend is about the Conjolier house, which is also known as the house that the devil built. That's pretty spooky. They literally think the devil built it. This house is believed to be the most haunted house in the nation, though every time I hear of a haunted place, people are constantly like, this is the most haunted. This is the most haunted. At this point, I think everything's haunted. Alright, so this legend is actually really, really long, and I hope my battery can withstand this. I've broken it up into 5 different parts for you guys. So let's move on to part number 1 of the legend of the Conjolier house. A man named Charles Wright Collinger got rich in the South after the Civil War and made his way to Pittsburgh, PA. Why specifically Pittsburgh? I have no idea. I guess around after the Civil War it was a good place to go. He built a grand mansion in the 1860s at 1129 Ridge Avenue. There he lived with his wife, Linda, and their maid, Etsy. Charles and Etsy began a secret affair with one another. One day in 1871, Linda overheard what was happening behind her back and decided to take matters into her own hands. She grabbed a knife or a meat cleaver. It changes depending on the story you're looking at. I think meat cleaver has more oomph to it, so we'll go with that. She grabbed a meat cleaver and killed the 2 lovers. A friend of the Collingers found Linda a few days later in a rocking chair humming to Etsy's decapitated head in her lap. Pretty much that lady went a little cuckoo. I mean, I kind of don't blame her because, she found out that her husband was cheating on her and stuff, but to chop off the young girl's head and then, just sit there for days humming to it. Oh, wait, that would have smelled that house probably smelled so bad. That was only part 1. It gets crazier from there. That's how we start with this house. Alright, so here's part 2, which is shorter than part 1. After the Collingers, the house was empty for 20 years, until 1892 when a railroad company bought the house and converted it into apartments for their workers. Though they didn't stay long since the workers started to complain about strange sounds and activity in the building. Eventually, the workers refused to stay in the house and it was put back on the market. After hearing the stories of what happened in that house, I wouldn't want to live there either. Or at least I would have some sort of exorcist or sage the house or something. Alright, so that was a lot shorter, but part 3 gets even crazier. Nuts, okay? Here's part 3. Dr. Adolf C. Brunrichter, I guess. I can't speak today, guys. I'm sorry. Dr. Adolf C. Brunrichter purchased the home in 1900 once he arrived in America. He was a very quiet and reclusive man who rarely left his home or socialized with his neighbors. Me. Though he got a lot of attention on the night of August 12th, 1901, when his neighbors heard a woman screaming followed by a light of an explosion coming from his home. When the police arrived, they discovered a body of a woman with her head missing. They also uncovered a strange laboratory with severed heads of 5 more women. I don't know what it is with this house and decapitating, but apparently that's its thing. The notes in the lab reveal that Dr. Brunrichter, I don't know why I'm putting that accent on it. I don't know. It sounds fancier that way, I guess. The notes in the lab revealed that Dr. Brunrichter was experimenting with the heads. He was trying to keep the women alive even after being decapitated. So this is some weird Frankenstein sort of stuff, I guess. Dr. Brunrichter was never found. He wasn't found at the scene at all. He fled. But in 1929 in New York, a man was arrested after claiming to be the said doctor. He was referred to as the Pittsburgh Spook Man in the newspapers. Turns out that he was just a drunk, and when he was questioned by the police, he kept telling them that he was the doctor and that there were more bodies buried at this location and that location. But once the police looked at those locations, there was no bodies found there. And he was arrested, sent to prison, but then released from prison because he was deemed harmless and then never heard of again. So it was just a crazy drunk night for him. Alright, moving on to part 4. At this point in time, the house was started to have a reputation of being haunted. Which attracted a lot of interest from different people. It is believed that medium Julia Murray and Thomas Edison visited the house in the 1920s. According to PopularPittsburgh.com, Murray was said to have detected a gruesome spirit that she believed had the potential to kill and power to travel beyond the house. Edison also went to the house to test his new device that would allow him to communicate with the spirit world. I never really knew that Edison was into the paranormal stuff. Like, this is the first time I was hearing that he was into this stuff. I know he was a great inventor, I just didn't know he was like, let me talk to ghosts kind of guy, but turns out he is. Number 5, the final part. The house was empty once again until the Equitable Gas Company bought the property. They converted the house once again into apartments for their immigrant workers. The men living in the house claimed to have heard demonic voices. They also found 2 of their fellow workers dead in the basement. The men appeared to have been murdered, but there was nowhere for the killer to escape. So either it was a demon, or there was an imposter among them. I'm gonna say it was Red. Red is always sus. The workers immediately moved out of the house, and I would too. I mean, finding 2 of your fellow workers dead and also hearing demonic voices? Yeah, I would book it out of there too. The Equitable Gas Company still stayed in the neighborhood. On November 14th, 1927, workers were attempting to fix a leak on the top of a massive natural gas storage tank. A huge flame erupted from the tank and sent the container flying. More containers started to explode, creating giant fireballs. The destruction was visible for miles. The explosion demolished the colander. I forgot how to say it already. It's been hours, okay? The explosion demolished the Colander house, leaving a huge crater behind. According to the locals, the house was transported back to hell. The house is no longer standing, but many still believe that the original place where the house was is a spiritual hotspot. Alright, so that was a very, very long urban legend. To me, it sounds like a horror movie. Like that, like each individual horror movie, but it's all set in one house. It's like crazy. And if you think most of this is too good to be true, not too good, too crazy, not too good. There's none of this is good. If you think that most of this is like too crazy to be true, you're right. Let's move on to the history behind this house and like what actually happened. And I'm sorry for the people out there who like want to believe in this ghost story. It's a really good, scary ghost story, but unfortunately it's not true. According to PopularPittsburgh.com, the first record of a house built at 1129 Ridge Avenue was in the late 1880s. He's gonna scratch behind me now. So it was in the late 1880s. This legend claims... Magnus, do you mind not making such a loud noise? I'm trying to get through this video. I swear he's a furry toddler. So it was saying that it was in the first record of a house in that area at that address was in the 1880s. But in the legend, it states that Charles Wright Callender built his house in the 1860s. Doesn't seem like it existed then. Also, the house would have been an average row home, not a mansion, because it would have been odd in that Manchester area where it was built to have a mansion there. Considering it was an industrial neighborhood at the time, they would want like smaller, convenient houses instead of larger mansions since they needed a lot of workers to be there. According to HauntinglyPA.com, there are no Calendars listed in any 1871 Pittsburgh public records, and there are no newspaper accounts of a horrific murder or headless corpses at 1129 Ridge Avenue. If someone found Linda with her mate's head in her lap, the cops would have been called. So they would have had that account in the newspapers. And then also with the doctor, doing that horrible laboratory experiment thing, that would have definitely been in the newspapers. So the fact that there's no accounts of any sort of murder doesn't look like it happened. So in that case, it looks like there isn't any record of any Charles Wright Collinger or Linda or even the doctor at that house at all. So either they didn't exist or they weren't at that house, or, you know, someone obviously probably made them up. It was never documented that the home turned into a dormitory for the workers. In the story, it says twice that they turned into apartments for workers. And really, there isn't any documentation about that. There was a Marie Collinger who... He really has to sabotage my video. That's all he's doing. Are you an attention whore? There was a Marie Collinger who was killed in the Equitable Gas Company blast in 1927. So yes, that blast was real, but it wasn't as damaging as they said in the story, because there wasn't a crater left of the house. Like that, no, that did not happen. According to popularpittsburgh.com, the windows of the home shattered and a shard of glass severed a major artery in Marie's leg, which caused her to bleed out and die. But the house was not destroyed by the blast. There were other houses that were around it that were damaged to the point where, yeah, they need to be knocked down. But nothing left a crater. The newspaper article explaining her death never claimed that she lived at 1129 Ridge Avenue. So yes, she had the last name Collinger and she lived in that area, but it never claimed she lived at that specific house. So there's nothing really saying that, like, the Collingers lived at that house at all. The house is no longer standing. It was eventually demolished to make way for a highway. So if you are to look up the location, you will find just a street. But apparently people say it's still kind of haunted if you go to the area. So maybe you can catch some ghosts there. So that is the end of the Collinger house. Collinger. How do you say it? Maybe one day I'll learn how to speak English, but for right now, no.
Conjolier.
That is the end of the Conjolier House urban legend. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like these videos and want me to do more urban legend videos, please like this video so I know to do more. Also comment below how you feel about this urban legend. Honestly, I really like how detailed it is. I honestly really like the story itself. Like, I know it's not true and it kind of saddens me that it isn't true. Actually, no. Actually, I'm really happy it's not true, because all that decapitating. It's a really interesting story. Like, an interesting ghost story to tell around a fire, or, like, honestly, if it was a horror movie, you know what? I think I'll make the Conjolier House a horror movie. One of my next films is going to be this. I'll make it a horror movie. Anyway, yeah, comment your thoughts about this urban legend down below. If you have any other suggestions for an urban legend that I should research and talk about, let me know. And subscribe, because I always need some more oddities around here. Keep things interesting, you know? Thanks for watching, and cut. That's a wrap.